All right, guys, it is Wednesday, November 17th, 2021, and I haven't put up a video in several days because I was putting together a video, and like I would do a few videos during the day, and then I'd go in and import them to the computer, and then the next day I'd do a few videos, import them to the computer. Well, one day I ended up formatting my SD card, which deletes the videos, and it was some that I did of that day, so I lost some videos. So what I'm going to do is just basically get you up to speed on what's going on right now in a video. Now, I've already done this video once, and it was almost 30 minutes long, so I'm going to try to just get to it and get you caught up. So here we go. So I got the 406 on the stand, all the rotating assemblies in it, the cams in it, timing chain, oil pumps on it. Everything's torqued in and done. I've had a bunch of little issues happen, and I've also had a thing that I needed to figure out what I was going to do, and I spent a good day or 2 days just trying to figure that out. But one of the issues I had was mini starter clearance to my header. I had a mini starter on here. It's just a standard, you know, like $120 or $30 mini starter. They usually have two bolt patterns, one for a small flex plate, which is 153 tooth, or a large flex plate, which is 168. Now, I had forgot this because it's been a while, but when I done the hardtop, when I was doing mock-up, I ended up having to buy the 153 tooth small flex plate because the starter was up against the header. So I ended up putting that small flex plate in there, and it clearanced it away from it, so it worked great. Now, starters are clockable. Those mini starters are clockable, so you can kind of move them around a little bit, and I had it clocked in the best location for it. So I had forgot all this, so when I ordered all my stuff from Summit, the rings, the bearings, gasket kit, flex plate, harmonic balancer, once I got the flex plate here and I took it out of the box, then it hit me, oh crap, this is a large diameter flex plate. 400 is external balance. You have to have external balance stuff. They have a counterweight welded on them, and also your harmonic balancer. If you buy an aftermarket like this, it's going to have a counterweight in it. The original one just had like a notch cut out of the main body, like half of it or something. But anyway, when looking at the flex plate, of course, the very first thing I did was go check it to my torque converter to make sure that it did go on, because this flex plate does have the dual pattern and it does fit my torque converter. So before you bolt everything together, make sure that your flex plate bolt holes do line up. But I got in trouble a long time ago with one of those. But anyway, so I put on one cylinder head on the starter side, and I bolted on the header with a couple of bolts, and I just wanted to check clearance for the mini starter to get it out to the outboard, you know, bolt holes. And sure enough, it's up against the header, and I could not quite get the bolts in there. So I went and looked on the internet for probably a good hour. It's hard to tell in pictures. So then I ended up going to Tulsa to a speed shop, and I looked at their mini starters. I was trying to find something a little bit smaller of a body, which pretty much all they had there was what I had that would have been affordable, I should say. So what I ended up doing was I looked at the header at that point when I got back. Now, this tube right here is actually coming up at an angle. The other three are all square, straight, but this one comes up at an angle, and right here's where the starter was having the issue. Now, I'd put heat wrap on it to keep heat off of that mini starter, but anyway, what I ended up doing was I laid this across my legs in the floor, and I used a pretty big hammer, and I just flattened off this area right here just a little bit. So now with the header and the mini starter bolted on, I can get, I don't know, probably a quarter down in between it. You know, the wrap does take up quite a bit of room because I've double wrapped it, so that stuff is kind of thick. But I didn't have my new thick Cometic aluminum gaskets on the header either. I just bolted that directly to the head. So when I put the gasket on there, it's going to space it out just a little bit more. So it'll definitely be pretty good. Now, a long time ago, I had a Monte Carlo that had a mini starter on it and headers, and the mini starter always set right up against the header. And I never had a hot start issue with a mini starter. You know, stock starters, you really can't do that because they'll heat soak, or all the ones I have did. But anyway, so I got that all clearanced out, but that was pretty much a day of jacking around with it just to get what I had here to work. So anyway, so I didn't crush the tube in by any means, just in a little bit. But anyway, so I got that all done. Now the next problem I had was when I had the rods and pistons laid out here on this cardboard box. I had washed everything, and I had the pistons and rods laying there, and then the rod caps were laying right beside them. And I got to looking, and they have swapped out a few of my rod caps from when they resized them. So, and that was another issue that like a month and a half ago or whatever, when I talked to him on the phone, he asked me about new rod bolts, and I said, yeah, I put ARP in it. Well, I didn't get ARP. So, I had to make sure I didn't get charged for ARP, what they would be. But anyway, I got Pioneer stock replacement rod bolts, and I got Pioneer stock replacement main bolts. But anyway, I'll try to show you right here. See how that pad right there on that rod cap is thicker than this one? This one's more flat right here compared to this. So when there was actually one that had a really tall pad, but when they were laid out flat, you see this, short, and then it kicks way up to a taller one. And I was like, that has got to be heavier because, that pad, that I call it a weight pad, it's got to be heavier. So I ended up going to Harbor Freight, and I bought a digital scale here. This was only 20 bucks at Harbor Freight. It does grams, ounces, and pounds. But anyway, I took the rod caps and did them one at a time, and I wrote them down on a notebook. And there was, on the lowest numbered one, the one that weighed the less, and the one that weighed the most, 21 grams difference. That sounds like a lot to me. So at that point, I called a buddy of mine that drag races, and I talked to him about it. And of course, trying to tell somebody on the phone something, it's hard to explain it because I really didn't know what I was trying to get at anyway. But what I was trying to find out, because he's telling me, the pistons shouldn't be on the rods, and you got to balance the rods out on a machine that holds them sideways and all this kind of crap. What I wanted to know was how far out a piston and rod can be from the other one. Like, I know GM didn't have these, dead zero balanced perfectly. They had a variance between them. That's what I wanted to know, is what the variance could be before it causes, a vibration in the engine or harmonics or whatever. So anyway, what I ended up doing was I called a machine shop, not the machine shop I use, because if they turned that out that way, they think that's okay. So I wanted a different input on it. So I called a machine shop that actually do balancing, and I talked to that guy. And he, my idea was to take these rod caps, stick them on that scale, and then just basically start grinding the pad down till they were all within whatever GM specs would be, which I wouldn't think would be 21 grams difference. And I'm glad I called him, because I would have made a mistake had I have done just the rod caps. He told me to put the piston rod and that cap with it on the scale and weigh all of it as a whole one at a time, and then catalog it, then see what your difference is. He asked me, very first thing when I told him this, the very first thing he asked me, is this a racing engine or is this a street engine? And I said, this is a street engine. He goes, okay, that's all I need to know. So he likes 5 grams max on variance between them. So I had 21 on that, just the rod cap difference. So after putting the rod cap, like the number 1 piston and rod, and I set the rod cap on it and I put it on the scale, when I went through and done all of them individually, I only had 7 grams difference from the lightest to the heaviest. So 7 grams is not terrible if 5 grams is max. So, it still needed to be ground a little bit. So my idea was to take the heaviest one and grind the pad down a little bit with the, 36 grit roll lock and get it to where I wanted it. But what I ended up doing, since it didn't take 5 minutes to do that, I ended up grinding them all to what the lowest one was, which was 1343 was the number I got on the gram scale. So I just did them all at 1343. I just ground those pads until. Now, keep in mind, if this thing was turning a lot of RPMs, this would need to be balanced professionally on that machine with just the rod, because it's got to be held up sideways to balance it and all that crap. But for a street car that's not going to see a lot of RPMs, this is fine to do that. So anyway, that's what I did. So anyway, that was a mess there. Got that done. I didn't get my Woodruff keys with my crank. I didn't get them back with it. So I had to dig those out of another crank I had here. What else? I've been looking for the tube that goes down inside the block here for the dipstick. It's an inside tube that goes in there and comes out, and it just protects your dipstick from the rotating assembly. Years ago, I've run an engine, it probably was a 400, and I didn't have that tube in there, and it ended up chewing up the dipstick from the crank. So I know I had that tube, and I cannot find it, and I have dug everywhere looking for it. So I'm pretty frustrated with that. So I ended up going to a buddy's house trying to locate one of those tubes, but I ended up having to get another oil pan anyway. So I basically just did a bunch of phone calls and internet search and talking on the phone and that kind of crap to get all this to where it is now. So, you know, days have passed and not a lot to report. So anyway, so it's pretty much ready at this point. Now, the other thing I had as not really an issue was pan rails. I like running pan rails on my small block Chevy. Actually, I would put them on, like to have them on any engine. These basically, you put your oil pan on, then you lay these over the top, and then you put your bolts through it. And this just keeps your flanges from getting tweaked out on your oil pan. I love running these things. But I did not have the one for the straight one here for the 400. I had this one. I have a bunch of these here. I have probably 2 or 3 sets of these here. I actually had 2 extras of these. For what reason, I don't know, but anyway, so I ended up taking the one long one that I had, which had a little jog in it, and I cut a section out of this, one of these extra ones of these, and put it together with this one. Now, in case you don't know, these bolt holes are equal length on these for each side. So what I ended up doing was I cut those in half, and I chamfered both sides 45 degree all the way around. And then I used 5/16 bolts, even though 1/4 inch is what goes in your oil pan. These holes are larger. But I put 5/16 bolts and tightened it down to this one. And I took, and I used clamps on the part where I split it, because I split it right in the middle of the bolt holes. Right there's where I done it. And I used clamp here and a clamp here. So then I fired up my welder and I put a pretty good stitch right there. And then after it cooled down, I took off the clamps, I unbolted it, flipped it over the other side, and welded it all the way around, and then went back and finished it out in the middle. So now I have a pan rail set. I also had to cut the ends down, and I had to put these angles in there, these curves, because the oil pan that my buddy gave me has raised pads at the front and the rear for just the bigger bolts, which are the 5/16 bolts. So, you know, I had to, you know, spend a couple hours metalworking and working on these. So it just, that type of crap happening, you know. That's why I've always loved small blocks, is the interchangeability between stuff. But then again, you get to the passenger side dipstick to driver side dipstick, and it really kind of screwed me up. The engine I had in here was a passenger side dipstick 350, and then I went to a driver side dipstick 400. So my low carb braided dipstick tube, oil dipstick stuff, for that 350 will not work in this 400. So that really sucks. Now, the other issue I had, this is what took me a couple of days just trying to figure out what I was going to do, because I am worried about flattening a hydraulic flat tappet camshaft, because if you did not catch that video, I talked to 2 cam manufacturers. I talked to Howard's about roller, and I talked to Comp about flat tappets. And I learned something new that I did not know. There's been a lot of guys on YouTube with channels that they're flattening cams on break-in, or they're flattening shortly thereafter they're flattening their camshafts. So I always run the zinc oil. It's other stuff too, but it's you know, a break-in oil. I run Comp Cam's break-in oil every time, but I also put in a bottle of ZDDP on top of it just to be feel better about it. But what I found out was now they want you to not only run the oils, they want you to take your center valve spring out and run the car for 500 miles without the center valve spring. Or put your stock original valve springs in and run the car for 500 miles and then change the valve springs back out. That sounds scary to me. Taking a center valve spring out, you know, either way it would cause valve float. It could possibly drop a valve and destroy that cylinder in that engine. It could blow your piston, you know, blow a hole in it. I mean, it could do some catastrophic damage to your engine. And after spending that much money on that 400, I don't want that to happen, so I'm trying to take precautions. You know, I talked about the differences in price from a hydraulic flat tappet to a roller, because it's not just the cam and lifter roller. You got to have the other stuff to go with it. So it's going to be $1,000 to do a roller. I didn't have it. So what I have decided to do, since my stock original valve springs will not work on these Edelbrock heads, different installed height and different diameter, so they won't work on these Edelbrock heads. So I have decided to run some stock GM 882 heads on the 400. Don't want to do it, but I got to do it because I'm not taking a chance on ruining my engine. It's just my personal opinion. I think it would be easier to change cylinder heads out on the car than it would be change valve springs, because the two times that I have changed valve springs out on a car, it sucks. So anyway, I've dug these heads out. Now these heads are 76cc smog heads. These are just like, you know, late 70s GM heads. 194 valve, 76cc combustion chamber. You know, this is going to kill the power of my engine. My engine was going to be 10.5 compression with those 64cc aluminum Edelbrocks. I'm not sure what it's going to be with 76, but I'll probably be able to run 87 octane in it if I needed to. But these cylinder heads were on an engine in a Monte Carlo SS I had bought, and I got all the receipts with the car. And this engine didn't have a whole lot of miles on it, and the machine shop that done a 350 out of that car, somebody put a 350 in it. These heads had new valve guides put in and all redone, and I actually noticed it had the little washers underneath the valve springs. So, you know, these heads were redone. So these valves should be tight in here. Anyway, I'd taken that engine apart. I used the engine in something else and changed the heads, but I put these heads under my bench. So now I've got them out here. I've got to drill the steam holes in them. They do not have the steam holes. That is not bad to do. I've done that several times through the years. I've actually put 305 heads on a 400 once, and I drilled the steam holes. So I remember when I was a really young guy, my uncle had a 400 small block in a 55 Chevy, and a pretty fast car, had dome pistons in it and everything. He ended up selling that engine to somebody, one of his buddies, and that guy, for whatever reason, changed the heads out, and he didn't know about the steam holes, and he ruined that engine. If I remember right, it cracked it or something. If you don't have the steam holes, it will crack or overheat your engine, so you have to have them steam holes. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I know some of the guys that watch my channel are not really, you know, car savvy, so I'll run you through that real quick. On a 400 small block, they have these right here. This is called steam holes. It's in between the cylinders right here, these two holes. These are larger on the bottom. The upper ones are a little bit smaller. When I drill the heads, I drill them the same size as these. You can use your 400 head gasket, your new ones or your old ones for your template. You know, get it, set your gasket on there and then mark it from the gasket, which is what I will do. But you need those, because without those, the engine will run hot and it can crack. Anyway, here's something that is totally different on 400s from a 350. This is what's called Siamese Bores, and basically you cannot put a screwdriver between the cylinders right there. Normally on a 350 you can stick that screwdriver all the way up in between there. You've got space. You do not have that on a 400. So these engines do run pretty hot cylinder temperatures because of that. So you definitely need a good cooling system, which I have. So anyway, I have to drill these and get that done. Now, in other news, I had a phone call a few days ago from an Alabama number, and of course I didn't answer. If I don't know the number, I don't answer it. So if you want to get a hold of me, you need to leave a voicemail, because I'm not going to answer that phone, because 9 times out of 10 it's going to be extended warranty crap on my car, which is a 1987 GMC, like they're going to put a warranty on that. You know, just that type of crap. But anyway, the person left a voicemail, and when I listened to it, it was actually Bryant Weldon from the Tri-Fi Forum. Anyway, he told me that he had sold his 55 Chevy 4-door he had. He watches my videos, and he had some brand new parts that he wanted to give me to use on the car. So anyway, I got a UPS package yesterday, and actually when the UPS guy came here, I had oil and grease and stuff all over my hands because I was doing engine work. And when he brought it up here, I took it out of his hands and I left greasy handprints on the box. But Anyway, I didn't open it. I went back to finish what I was doing, and then, I don't know, it seems like just a little bit later, my phone rang, and it was an Alabama number, and I picked it up, and it was Bryant. He wanted to make sure I got my package. He was basically making sure I didn't leave it on my porch for somebody to grab it, you know what I mean? But anyway, so Bryant, thank you for the parts, but this is them right here. I actually had them sitting on this head, and then when I walked through here a while ago, I knocked them over. I thought I was going to knock the head over into my core support, but he gave me a brand new set of window felts. And there's actually also a set of J-seals in here, which I did not order. I forgot to order these, so now I have the J-seals that goes at the front of the doors. So that is awesome. Now, he also sent me a set of soft seal door weather strips. I had bought Metro, and I got them not too long ago, so I am going to go in there and try to contact them and see about returning them and just use these soft seal. I like soft seal better, so that's what I want to use. But oh, I didn't even notice something was on there. I can't tell what that says. I don't have my glasses. I'll have to check that, so it looks like I got something else, some more goodies from him. But anyway, he sent me a couple pictures of his car, and I definitely want to show this. I'm going to tack these up on the wall out here, but these are just print off pictures of his car that he had. He actually sold his car, and it's kind of sad, but you know, that's a green 55 four-door. Man, that's a pretty car. It had four-wheel disc brakes and all kinds of goodies on it. I wish I'd have got an engine shot of it, but I don't know what it had for an engine. But anyway, he done a nice job on a very beautiful car, but he ended up selling it, and he gave me these parts, which is really, really awesome. So thanks again, Bryant, for the parts there. Anyway, so that's pretty much where I'm at. Not really a lot to report, and I ended up deleting videos that I had done by accident. Really sucks. It's habit for me. When I do videos, I go in there and I import them to the computer, and then the next morning when I come out to do a video, I just format my card, so it deletes everything that's in the GoPro, and it's just habit. So it's just something I did by accident. But I was planning on doing a full. I showed putting the crank in, doing the rear main seal, and torquing it. I had my wife video of me putting the piston and rod in, just one of them, because it would take 45 minutes for me to do them all, as slow as I am at it. But anyway, she videoed me doing that, which I do have that video because I imported those that night. But anyway, it's just been a mess, a big mess. It seems like there's something else and I don't even remember. I don't know if I covered the oil pan or not. I had to get another oil pan. I got a used one from a buddy that he had hanging on a shop wall. It had a dent in it that I had to hammer and dolly out. Just a little one, a little dinger. But anyway, so now I have the correct oil pan. But I guess that's it, guys. That's pretty much the update. And sorry it's 23 minutes, but when I tried to explain in detail everything that's happened, you know, that stuff happens. What I have noticed about videos, when you put them on your channel, if you don't explain everything just right, or if you miss a few things, you have people that try to correct you or tell you what you did wrong, even if that's what you did. And then there's also the guys that skip the video and they miss that information, and then they ask you about it anyway after you covered it in the video. That's happened a bunch. So, you know, I get it. People don't want to watch long videos, but, you know, at the end of the day, those ads that you're seeing on my channel, that's how I get paid. And I was told a long time ago you're supposed to have a 10.5-minute video or something. No, you're not. The longer the video is, the more ads you have on your channel. So that's more money. Sorry to be a money-hungry guy, but if I'm doing videos and I'm spending 2 or 3 hours of my time doing the videos, you know, I'd like to get a little something out of it, which I will say, that pretty much paid for my flex plate and harmonic balancer on my last money that I got. So it is nice to make a little bit of money back from that. It's not a lot, but it's a little bit. Every little bit counts, you know what I mean? But anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll try to do a little bit better videos from here on out, and hopefully I don't delete them like I did this last time. Thanks for watching.